goes something like this: Tarzan in the jungle, Tarzan on the gate, Tarzan in the toilet, too late. I got all these photographs. I rescued them from my sister one visit to Scotland. My name is Paul Graig. I'm age 65. I've been living in California now for the last 23 years. I'm originally from Scotland. My work has taken me to various parts of the world, including London, England, Hong Kong for almost 3 years, and the Republic of Ireland for 5. I was born in Scotland in 1954. I'm the youngest of a family of 5, of 3 elder sisters and 1 older brother. So I was born into a fairly working class family. My father worked in Imperial Chemical Industries as an explosives worker. My mother had been born into a rather large family. His father was alcoholic, and she was determined to lift the family out of the working class status. So during World War II, she bought a hotel. My father continued to work, but when he came home, he had to dry dishes and serve tables. She made it work, much to the chagrin of my elder sisters and brother, because they were kind of free waitresses and waiters. And she had a few stories during the war. There was rationing, of course, so the hotels could operate, but on very limited scale due to rationing. There was a family came up to the hotel looking for high tea, and my mother said she had only some bread and fish pastes that she could make sandwiches with. After she'd made the sandwiches and delivered them to the people with cups of tea, my father told her that she had opened by mistake a can of cat food. Well, my memories are very vague. My earliest memory is my sister hiding me behind these long skirts that the girls wore in the early 50s, and she had me in behind her body, and my mother was saying, "Have you seen him?" And she's going, "No, I don't know where he is." My mother was going to give me a thrashing for breaking a cup or something, and I vaguely remember that. In the mid-60s, we were having vacations in Europe, which was kind of unusual. It was just beginning to start up, so financially, the family's fortunes improved just through stint of hard work on my mother's part. There was no room for any kind of independent thought or questioning. When I got to high school, it was run almost exclusively by nuns, some of whom, contrary to popular perception, were very remarkable and wonderful women. But some of them weren't kind of pleasant to be around. It was the time of disco and going to try and meet girls at the discotheque. I had a friend from high school, Tommy. He was a very tall, young kid with a mop of wavy, thick black hair. And the girls just went crazy for him. This guy, I think, had more sex than Mick Jagger. And so I was kind of Tommy's wingman. So occasionally I would pick up, some nice girls that were partnered with who he was headed off for. Tommy, in the early 70s, started a disco in some of the local hotels. And he just used it to pick up girls. He would have agreement with the hotel if they had a room that wasn't sold for the night. They would give him the key, and he would say to his cousin to mind the disco while he went down the dance floor, and he'd be dancing with some girl, and then he'd whisper in their ear, and they'd go up the stairs to the bedroom, and then about 20 minutes or 30 minutes later he'd come back down and take over the disco again. He was a smooth operator, I'm trying to remember my first serious girlfriend. Would have been probably a girl, Anne Smith. And she was a lovely girl. I took her up to visit my parents, and of course my mother being strong Irish Roman Catholic and this girl being Presbyterian, my mother was kind of cool with her in the house. But my father was Presbyterian and he was a bit more forthcoming with her. But after I'd driven her home and come back to the house and I'd asked my parents about it, and my mother says, this relationship's not going to last, you better tell her you're breaking up with her because she's not Catholic, you know. And I asked my father what he thought of her, and I said, do you not think she's pretty, Dad? And he said, and he was probably about my age now, or a little bit younger, and he says, well, Paul, you've got to understand, when you get to 65, every 17-year-old girl's pretty. 1972, I graduated from high school. I went to work in London, down in England, but I was rather unsettled. I'm not sure I could settle into the English culture. It's quite different from Scotland. So I came back up to Scotland and drove vans and trucks for about a year. And then my mother said to me one day, what are you doing next week? Next Thursday? I says, nothing, I'm going to work. She says, no, you're not. You're going to Glasgow for an interview for the Naval College to be an engineer like your cousin John. So I said, yeah, okay. So I took the day off, took the train up to Glasgow, got the interview and got accepted into the enrolment in the college. And I did well at the college. I graduated with second place out of an enrolment of about 156. And stayed in the Merchant Marine right up from 74 till 1980, 6 years. I was down the engine room in the ship, you know, maintaining the engines. It was a mixture of watchkeeping and maintenance work. But it was hard work because a lot of ships you worked 12-hour days, 7 days a week. You might be on the ship for 6 months and didn't get a break. And it was tough in port because there was always work needing to be done on the main engines that couldn't be done while she was underway at sea. I remember doing 5-day dry dock in New York, and we're working 18 hours a day, and we still found time to find a bar and shoot some pool, drink some beer. What kind of a man's Paul Graig? It's hard to say. I would say I'm very sensitive. As I've got older, I realise in life the only thing that matters is people, other people, and how you treat them. I think is really all that matters at the end of the day, and I think you need to be sensitive to that. I've always been the type of person I think to really enjoy life. I never had a planned career. I just would take each day as it came. And some days opened up new opportunities for you, and if I saw a value in it, I would seize them with both hands and move into that direction. I moved out of the marine engineering into aircraft engine maintenance, where I've been for 40 years. I just saw the opportunity and applied for a job working with gas turbines, and there I've been ever since. Airline at that time called British Caledonian Airways, and they opened up an engine overhaul shop at Prestwick Airport, which was just down the coast about 15 miles from my hometown. So I applied for the job, and they put me into engine testing. Working in the airline industry and the maintenance side, you really only get one chance to make it right. And if you don't make it right, it can have real serious consequences. So the buck stopped here. My first wife I met one evening. She was friendly with a nephew of mine who's dead now, God rest him, but she had come over to the house to see if he wanted to go and play pool. And my sister says, oh, he's out on his bike, but my young brother's here, maybe he would like to go and play pool with you. So her and I went to the local pool hall and had a couple of beers and shot pool. And I took her home and asked her, if I could see her again. And, we got into a steady dating routine. So I've got a boy, 2 girls, and another 2 boys. Yeah, the oldest boy is Declan. He's 33 and lives in Eskilstuna in Sweden. My eldest daughter, Caitlin, is 32, and she's an occupational therapist at a hospital in Dublin. My youngest daughter's Maeve, and she's just turned 30 this year, and she's what they call them in the States, a nursing practitioner in Cork in Ireland. And my two boys are still in Ireland, Max and Dara. They're studying at university, studying psychology. When we first moved to Hong Kong, it was early in 1989. My wife was heavily pregnant, so when she went into labour and being a midwife, she knew it was for real. I went to the front desk of the apartment building and asked them to order a taxi. So the taxi came and I brought my wife out and she's holding her stomach, and he immediately drove off again. Next taxi was the same, next taxi was the same. So I told my wife to wait inside the apartment building front entrance. So I flagged down a taxi and he came and I went and opened the door, and then I held it open and waved for her to come out. And he tried to drive away, but I was holding the door open. So he had to stop, and she get in the taxi and I get in beside her and I closed the door and I said, Matilda Hospital. And I said to my wife, I said, you can relax now, we're at the hospital. She says, we're not going to make it, take my pants off. She had these pants on. So I took her pants off and the baby's head's beginning to come out. And of course I'm panicking like crazy, but she's a midwife, so in between contractions she was great. She told me exactly what to do and how to hold the head and guide the head out. And then she gave a big push and the baby just come out like a cork from a champagne bottle, and I've got her up my arm like this. And I looked round and it just finished visiting time at the hospital. And I looked round and there was about 10 or 15 Chinese people peering in the taxi. So we had these big wet wipes, and I peeled one off and I saved my wife's modesty by covering her up. I think it was just a combination of being married and the pressures of having 5 fairly young children. And then the job I was in was extremely stressful. There was a lot of travelling with it, which meant, you know, my wife would need to watch after the other kids, and some of the time she was pregnant with either Max or Dara. And it just got to the stage I found it just emotionally to be untenable. I got a job offer here in Los Angeles and told my wife I was going to take it. And, you know, I says, you know, I want you to come, we can start afresh in the US. And eventually she told me one day she wasn't going to come to the US. And I said, well, I'm not coming back. And that was that. The company I joined here in Los Angeles was very good to me. I was well paid. I came here on an H-1B visa, which they organised. It wasn't the same kind of pressure that I'd had in Ireland. It was a bit more leisurely work. You could go home at regular hours instead of being there till 8 or 9 at night. But emotionally, looking back, it was a very difficult time for me, and I found reserves of strength that I didn't know I had, otherwise I wouldn't have made it. Carolyn I'd met in London in 1972 when she was a student at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London, and I'd met her there, but we were always just friends, and through the years we kept in correspondence. We met for the first time for coffee one night, and we just started talking about our lives and kind of picked up the friendship where we had kind of dropped off. So it actually took us right through to 2006 to get the divorce finalised, and then we got married in 2006 at a friend's house out in Agura Hills. She's so different from me. Being an engineer, I can plod along and how I attack problems or attack life. Carolyn, having worked in the arts and the entertainment industry, she's got wonderful perception on things, and sometimes I'd come in from work with a problem that I thought was insoluble, and she says, explain it to me again. I'm trying to keep the technical stuff out of it. She says, well, what if you did this? And I thought, no, I would never have thought of that at all. What do I want to be remembered by? But I think as, you know, somebody that had their ups and downs in life in difficult times, but managed, with the grace of God, to come through them intact as a person. Yeah, I think I'd like to be remembered for that.